Everybody needs to have a recipe that is fast and easy, especially if you don't have a lot of cucumbers coming on, enough to bother canning up and doing a big batch. And the good news is when you make refrigerator pickles, there is no worry about them not being crunchy because nobody likes a soggy, if that's such a word, pickle. So today we're gonna be making one of my favorites, which is a bread and butter refrigerator pickle. And you can even make just one jar, or of course you can multiply this out depending on how many cucumbers you actually have for as many jars as you need. But for this one, we're gonna be doing a quart jar today. So first up ingredients for when you are doing bread and butter pickles is we need to have vinegar. So 5% when you are canning vinegar is needed. And so that's all I happen to have on hand. I only buy 5% vinegar, which most of the vinegar that you buy from the store, unless it's a specialty type vinegar, is going to be a 5% vinegar. So this is a distilled white vinegar. Happens to be organic. You could use apple cider, but because we're going to be boiling the vinegar to infuse it with the spices for our flavoring, I probably wouldn't bother using your good raw organic, hopefully it's organic regardless, but the raw vinegar, because that's going to destroy the raw properties you're going to be cooking it. So I have got 2 cups of vinegar here for a 1 quart jar, or you could do 2 pints. And then I have got measured out my spices, and I do have a printable option of this over on the website, or if you've gotten my book Everything Worth Preserving, you have this recipe in there as well. So I've got my celery seed and my mustard seeds, and we're just going to go ahead and put that into the brine. Now, a bread and butter pickle does use sugar, so it is a sweet pickle. So we're going to be adding in here, this is just organic sugar, in with our vinegar. And then the other 2 ingredients that we've got is some salt and turmeric. So this gives it a really fun, pretty yellow color. We're gonna be doing 3/4 teaspoon on the turmeric. And I'm just kind of eyeballing that. I'm gonna sprinkle that on. And then 2 teaspoons salt. And with doing a refrigerator pickle, I still go ahead and use my Redmond's real salt because I actually use this for everything. But you want to make sure whenever you're doing pickling, especially if you're processing it in canning or doing fermented pickles, that you are using a salt that does not have iodine or anti-caking agents in it, which the Redmond's real salt doesn't, and that's why I stock it for absolutely everything. So we are going to stir these, and then we're going to turn our burner on here. We need to let this boil for 5 minutes to fully infuse it with the spices and really to make sure that everything is dissolved. Oh, I almost forgot the cloves, and you could say that that was intentional. I actually do not like cloves very much. I find them to be a very strong flavor, but just 2 cloves for the pickling and I'm okay with. So while our brine is boiling and infusing, we're gonna go ahead and pack our jar. So for a quart-sized jar, you always wanna use a wide mouth just because unless you have little tiny hands, I don't know, maybe I have really wide ones, it's much easier to get your hand in there to pack the ingredients if it's a wide mouth. So we have got 2 cups of sliced pickling cucumbers. You wanna make sure that you remove that blossom end. Even if it's a refrigerator pickle, the blossom end, which is this end, this is the stem end, contains an enzyme that actually can make pickles soft. So you want to make sure you remove about a 1/16 to an 1/8 inch of the blossom end, and that will help keep them nice and crisp. So we've got 2 cups of sliced cucumbers and then a 1/2 cup of sliced peppers and onions. I'm just going to kind of layer those in. And what's important is we want to be able to pack this down so that we've got approximately at least a 1/2 inch headspace. And then we're going to make sure that we put this on a towel, so as soon as our brine is done simmering, that we can pour it on there, and you want to make sure it's on a towel so you don't have thermal shock and accidentally crack your jar. Now that our brine is finished boiling, we're going to go ahead and pour this right over our vegetables. I highly recommend using a funnel. I do not possess good pouring skills. Oh, and you can see, look at that turmeric. Doesn't it make it such a pretty color in there? So I want to make sure after you've poured your brine in there, just that we are pushing down on those vegetables, getting them covered. They're going to float up just a little bit, but just to make sure. And then we are going to put our lid and band on. Now we're not canning these. These are just going to go in the fridge because they are a refrigerator pickle. So this is an instance, because we're not canning, that you can completely reuse a lid. So we're just going to get that on there, put that down. We're gonna let this sit out on the counter for about 30 minutes before putting it in the fridge, because boiling liquid in glass going into a cold fridge, again, we don't want to crack the jar. So we're just gonna let this sit here for about 30 minutes, and then we're gonna pop this in the fridge. Now, flavor profile wise, you really wanna let these babies sit in the fridge, if at all possible, for at least 2 weeks, because they're really going to infuse with all of that flavor, and they just get better and better. And these will stay good in the fridge up to 3 months, and honestly, I've had them last longer. So as long as you don't see any mold or anything like that, and they're kept in the fridge, they will go for quite a long time. But it's that 2-week period waiting for them to get there that's really hard. I have been known to crack into them a couple of days afterwards, just because I usually can't wait, and they're still good, but they are better at about that 2-week mark. Now, you may be curious, like, where on earth bread and butter pickles, like, where did that name come from? And there's two kind of folklore or different origin stories of bread and butter pickles. They're a sweet and sour pickle. The vinegar is obviously making them, that's the sour part. And then you have the sweet part because we've added the sugar. So it's kind of that sweet and sour part. So they are considered a sweet pickle. And in the 1920s, there was a couple that actually, I believe, filed for a trademark on bread and butter pickles. And it said that they were selling them and people liked them so much that there was a bartering item, so they could barter them for items like bread and butter. But then a lot of people know them, and this is actually how I thought that they came to be about and knew, is during the Depression, the Great Depression, people would put them on bread and butter, and they would put these sliced bread and butter pickles on there, and they would make a sandwich of just bread and butter and cucumbers. So either way, they are a longtime staple in the US, and they are delicious. I love them on sandwiches. You're probably really used to having them, especially if you go out to restaurants and diners, on hamburgers and possibly hot dogs. They are one of my favorites too, just to munch on. Now, this is a refrigerator pickle, but there are many, many canning recipes, and you can can a lot of pickles. You can ferment pickles, many variations of pickles that you can preserve at home. And you can pre-order my book, Everything Worth Preserving, and get the paperback, plus get the digital copy for free, and you can get access to that digital copy right now when you pre-order it. If you want to grab the printable version of this recipe, you can snag that at my website, and again, link below in the video description.